Okay. So, Dolly, are you tuned in and your microphone is on?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, yes, we are here.
Okay, I'm glad to know that you're there. So
Thank
I'm
you.
ready to begin, and if everything is okay over there, I'll begin. Yes?
Yes, a kind request to all to mute themselves. Thank you.
I guess that means a yes, because the volume. Okay. So this topic, as you see on your screen, overcoming fear, was from a list of topics that uh, was suggested that the students, the Mankato students, would be interested to hear. So I picked one that seemed kind of in the middle of what everyone wanted to hear about, overcoming fear. Some of the slides that you'll see, a few only, are from this past Saturday's gathering, uh, you know, dealing with the pandemics and uncertainty and all those things. But most of it is different. Something I heard just 2 days ago, a quote from Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Those of you from India, you don't know who he is, perhaps. He was the president during the time just before World War II and when World War II began. And in his 1933 inaugural address, this is a phrase that he spoke, because there was in the world there was
Your dad, okay, your
fear,
father-in-law.
fear of this and fear of that, and Great Depression and lots of uncertainties and so many things. So as a leader and a man of courage, he was leading his country to become free from all things except fear itself.
It's painful.
The person that I heard speaking this was the grandson of John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., saying that during the Nuremberg trials, one of the questions asked of one of the Nazi fellows that was being on trial, they asked him, how are you able to control so many people? And he said, it's really simple. All leaders do it in all times and all types of government, and that is, you rule by fear. You present to the people, here's something to be afraid of, and then they get united behind that thing that is to be afraid of. And during the Nazi era, it was one thing, and then another time it's another thing. And if our lives, so the point here, if our lives are ruled by fear, then we're in prison. We're in prison simply because of the fear that we're carrying, not necessarily because of the circumstance. Now, here's a nice image I thought to share with you. Where's that, whatever you want to call it, looks like, something that goes out into a lake. There's names for what you call those things. A little walkway into a lake. But it's not so safe. And for that matter, where does it take you? It just reminds me of the times that we're in. It's really uncertain, and what's coming after this present moment, we really don't know. And that uncertainty in and of itself lends to some apprehension, maybe the fear of something that's unknown. We don't know what's next. So fear is something that certainly is heightened in our modern times. But fear is a basic animal instinct. This is one of the slides you saw before. Not a very pleasant sight, poor zebra. But fear is within all embodied beings. There's 4 strong instincts. One of them is eating. Very interesting image about eating, huh? Sleeping, mating, and defending or fearing or fighting or protecting oneself. So of these 4 animal propensities, one of them is the strongest, and that's the fearing propensity. That is to say, imagine you're in the midst of eating something, or you're asleep, or even there's mating, and there's a threat of your life. You stop those 3 things, and you do one thing. It's a very strong, embodied being impulse. According to people that study fear and deal with it, deal with helping people, counselors and people like that, there's a social fear, such as fear of being judged. We're going to spend some time on this one, because my understanding is there's some of the students in Mankato expressed that's something that they contend with, fear of being judged. Fear of death, of course, and fear of loneliness. And just to be on the safe side, I checked, and what I heard is true. There, in the UK, in the last 4 or 5 years, there's an additional ministry, in addition to Ministry of Defense and Ministry of Economics and Department of the Interior and Department of Finance and Department of, I guess, War or whatever you may call it, Defense, is the Ministry of Loneliness. And they have a budget, and they have different things that the Ministry of Loneliness does, because it's a problem. It's a problem that costs the government lots of money, because when people have fear of loneliness, they end up having medical problems. And it costs a lot to take care of people with medical problems, so they're trying to head it off at the front end. Fear of loneliness. It grips a number of people. This is a slide that you saw on Saturday, those of you that are with us. That which is natural and inherent within embodied beings, that's all of us. These circumstances of the world in which we live accentuate or exacerbate that tendency for fear. There's a well-known verse in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says that this world, this place where we are, by design, it's dukkha. It's a temporary place filled with dukkha or misery, dukkhalayam or shashvatam. Everything is impermanent and always changing, and built within it is its sources of misery. That doesn't help matters. By design, that's the nature of the place. Then there's this additional verse of Bhagavad Gita. This is for those of you that are, Bhagavatam. For those of you that are familiar with Srimad Bhagavatam, a little bit, there's a nice pastime of a little boy, Prahlad, who was put at risk, at life's risk, by his horrible father, Hiranyakashipu. And Prahlad speaks this way, that the material existence, padam, yadvipadam, natesham, that there's calamity, vipadam, there's calamity at every step. So here's a solution: don't take any steps. I'm glad you were paying attention. It's not a practical solution. The place is calamity at every step, and you have to take steps. And so when you see calamity coming, there's different reactions. We saw this nice image also. There's the reaction is bewilderment and fear. And we heard that fear is often something that hasn't happened yet. It's off into the future. And the fear of something that's going to happen that has risk or danger or pain or someone evil is going to do some harm to you or something like that. There's fear. Now, there's healthy fear and there's unhealthy fear. So an example of a healthy fear, wearing your mask during the COVID time. It's a risk, and social distancing and all those things that the scientists tell us will help limit. Before you cross the street, you look in both directions because there's a risk. Cars could be coming from either direction, unless it's a one-way street. So then you take precautions. That's healthy to protect yourself. Then there's unhealthy fear. An unhealthy fear debilitates your ability to act wisely, properly, prudently, calmly, thoughtfully, effectively. It takes over. This unhealthy fear or imagined fear. And there's different kinds of imagined fear, but we're not going to spend time with that. Here's a Bhagavad Gita principle, and Buddhist principle for that matter. Wherever there's a desire, so if a Buddhist, your solution is just stop desiring. Become a stone, don't have any desires, and you won't have any fears. But as long as there's a desire, so there's going to be healthy and unhealthy ones. Now in our, we touched on it, and here's a nice image again, I like the image. Fear of uncertainty. Everyone, I'm sure, has this experience. We're used to, making plans and then following through all their plans, but there's so much uncertainty surrounding almost every aspect of life that what's next, you just don't know. You have to have some kind of a plan just to function, but we're surrounded by uncertainty. Certainly, we're going on because you have to go on, but uncertainty causes some turmoil inside. Health issues, mental health issues in particular, are skyrocketing because of this uncertainty and loneliness, dealing with people, keeping themselves quarantined and so forth. It's an unhappy circumstance, fear of uncertainty. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't make certainty out of uncertainty. Look closely at the back of the backpack. It's a funny face on the back of the backpack. It's a good artist. There's other kinds of fear. Fear of loss. When you have something that is important to you, a loved one or anything, you might lose it. So you can look inside. If we were face to face, we would spend some interactive time. but it's a little difficult with Zoom to do that. So we'll just ask you, we'll go slowly here. Consider, introspect, and some of your deepest fears. What are your deepest fears? The most significant ones. Maybe it's fear of death. Maybe it's so many maybes. So what are your deepest fears? And something that I have, I may lose it. And is that one of your fears? And is it going to actually happen? Is the fear of loss of something for certain going to happen? Or one thing is certain, that's death. That's well known. From Bhagavad Gita, whatever is born, death is certain. And similarly, whatever death it takes place, again, another beginning following that death is also certain. So fear of personal loss is something that you need to introspect about, and we'll discuss shortly what to do about these fears. There's the fear of being judged, mentioned at the very beginning. It happens in our society. There's some people that I consider bullies, and it's like their main business is name calling and calling people failures and calling people all kinds of unpleasant names because they don't meet their approval or something. And some people they're disempowered by that fear that if I don't do something right, I'm a failure, or etc. I'll spend a little bit of time with this, but I take note, those of you that had wanted this topic discussed. She covers it, Brene Brown covers it the best I've seen. It's a TED Talk, and if you can't remember the title, just remember the word vulnerability and TED Talk, and you'll find it. And she's a researcher, statistical researcher, and she went down the path of a PhD program of finding out those persons that are, she ended up calling it the wholesome. What makes them wholesome? And the people that aren't, what makes them not wholesome? And there's some, you'll hear, but some willingness to enter into the unknown territory in relationships. But it's okay if you enter into a relationship and someone violates the relationship. It's not like the end of the world and calamity. The fear of being judged, for example, or fear of not being successful in some undertaking with somebody or something like that. So you can listen. It's really good. Her conclusion is she shows written on somebody's upper torso, their chest, saying, "I am enough." It's a sense of an inner sense of self-worth that things may go this way, that way, but I am enough, and that's enough. Now that's taking that to the spiritual conception, because I've interacted with really nice people that also have this tendency of need for acceptance and feeling judged and so forth. From the spiritual conception, inside this body, there's a spirit soul. That's who we really are. And the spirit soul is a part and parcel of the supreme spirit soul or supreme self. And that in of itself is intrinsic worth. even if we did nothing or did nothing right. Just our existence has its own worth, like a particle of gold compared to a gold mine. And the particle of gold has some worth. The spirit soul that's within, there's inherent self-worth. And if we go there, instead of what we aren't, or we could be but we haven't yet, and all those other things, you are who you are, spiritually speaking. And by making that connection with the Supreme Self, that worth shines. The consciousness, it becomes very significant. And there's ballast or steadiness within. From that, it will help you overcome, those of you that have that fear of being judged. There's self-worth, whoever the judge is. Now, there's unhealthy response to fear. And I really like the image, it's good. It's the fight or flight image. So when some attack is coming, or the fear of some danger coming, or something like that, this is our parasympathetic nervous system that kicks in. You don't have to think about it. It just takes over. Fight or flight. Now that's on a body, animal instinct, fight or flight response. But in response to the situation itself, as well as the emotion connected to the situation, that's an unhealthy response. It doesn't take you out of fear. So let's go a little deeper, and we'll take a look at what's the root cause of fear. And you can take a guess. It's misidentifying with who we're not, instead of understanding who we are. That self-worth is lost, and we're identifying with who we're not. Or, in simple terms, false ego. A mistaken identity of self. A misconstrued sense of self-worth. So one of my favorite verses these days in Srimad Bhagavatam is this one. You can, those of you that have access to your phone, or you can look up in Vedabase this verse, Canto 11, Chapter 2, Text 37. You don't have to do it now, you can do it at your leisure, but make note of it. It'll explain to you the spiritual conception, the root cause of fear. This word bhayam, bhaya means fear, and the text says that fear arises when there's absorption in, abhinivesh. There's absorption in this world of duality that we find ourselves in, sometimes either end of the duality spectrum, sometimes whatever, sometimes light, sometimes dark, sometimes hot, sometimes cold, sometimes wet, sometimes dry, sometimes happy, sometimes sad. Wherever there's this, there's its opposite in this world of duality. And those that are identifying with that world of duality and they're absorbed in it, fear arises, because there's the rest of the verse speaks of you've abandoned yourself. Who you really are becomes completely covered. Your connection with the source of the Supreme Self is covered, forgotten. And there's a remedy. That's the bad news. The good news, that's how fear arises, but having association with persons who have their lights on, persons who have a degree of self-realization and they're on the path to disconnect with fear and illusion and connect again with the spirit self, that self-worth, the intrinsic person within. Those who are involved like that and hearing the messages and discussions from such personalities, it dismisses fear. We'll hear some more shortly as we go along. So here's a nice image, which maybe you've seen before. This is the liminal space image. And we're over on the left side right now, and we want to go over to that right side. But there's a big gap in between the two. And that big gap in between the two is called liminal space. And there's a lot of uncertainty. Let's say we want to get to knowing who we are and being freed from this negative emotion of fear. That's where we want to get. Be connected in yoga with our higher consciousness, that place of higher consciousness, and we're kind of zooming around over there on the left side in this other space of consciousness. And there's a big gap between us, between where we want to be and where we are at present. So that's called a liminal space. And I'm going to speak a little bit about this in the next few slides. It's personal development, it's interpersonal, relational development, it's self-development, and the bhakti process teaches there's something that will help us cross that liminal space, and that's our connection with Krishna. Now, here's two books. You may want to take note of this. The author of one of them is Katie Miller, and the title of the book, and I think that's the image on the cover of her book, How to Surrender to the In-Between. The in-between is you're not here and you're not there yet. You left the train left the station, you're not at the destination yet. One of her phrases is finding comfort in the not knowing. That's this uncertainty thing. So if you're transitioning to where you want to be but you're not there yet, that's an in-between space, and you really don't know how it's going to go. And her encouragement is, that's good, because it means you're going somewhere. When you're stuck, you're in that space of looking where you aren't and feeling bad about yourself because you aren't. And if you're in that in-between stage, you're not exactly sure of how it's going to unfold because you're transitioning. Transition is always uncomfortable. It's like if somebody moves from one place to another place, or kids go from one school to another school. It's like the transition is it's uncomfortable. Here's another statement: being in a threshold of life is really about trying to give over our trust to the power of time. I find the image is interesting, but going from one place to another place, that's a transition. And the threshold, being in a threshold of such a transition, you have to let go of the past and embrace the moment, which will take you into the future. But this is a description of time, and I won't go into it right now, but sometime you can ask me to go into it. This has to do with the teaching of Sankhya philosophy about the role of time in moving matter, because time keeps moving whether you like it or not. The tick, 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 the movement of time keeps moving. Time and tide wait for no man, it is said. Time and tide wait for no man. Time keeps moving. And time moves matter. Not only moves the tide, it moves matter. And whatever the situation we're in at the moment, whatever uncertainty, and we're far from where we want to be, and there's fear about, am I going to get there, and all those other things. I don't want to be a failure. I don't want to be judged as I'm moving from where I am to where I want to be. There's this giving over our trust to the power of time. And by the way, from Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, time I am. So it's indirectly saying, give your trust over to the power of Krishna. If you place yourself in the hands of someone that's very caring and powerful, that's a place of safety. Even you don't know exactly what's going to happen in the next moment. You're in a place of safety. And if you're not in a place of safety, likely you're in a place of fear. And life keeps changing. Just like this. It's a nice image. Here's another book on the same topic, liminal space topic. Honor the space between no longer and not yet. And I think that's the cover of her book. I didn't read the book, but just reading the review of the book, it's the same message. The space between no longer and not yet. So it's a spiritual growth, from at least from my vantage point. It's a spiritual growth picture. Things are going to change anyways, whether you're ready for spiritual growth or not. Things are going to change. Time moves things. And in that, as time is moving things and changing things, and it's not whether it's going to be yet, there's a space, and you need shelter in that space, and that shelter from a spiritual perspective is Krishna. And when you accept that spiritual shelter, then there's spiritual joy. Not just relief from the fear and distress, but there's a spiritual joy, a positive spiritual joy. And one can experience that even in the midst of uncertainty and this duality that we spoke about, happy, sad, light, dark, pleasure, pain. That's duality. And in this realm of duality in which we live, all kinds of uncertainty, there's something that's stable, something that's certain. That's who we really are. And there's a spiritual joy. Those of you that like reading Bhagavad Gita can look up this verse. It's from chapter 18, Bhagavad Gita. Brahma Bhuta means the stage of knowing who you are, spiritually, knowing who you are. And a symptom of knowing who you are spiritually is this joy, prasanatma. Prasanna, atma, happiness within the self, a joy within. A symptom of knowing who you are is there's a joy that's within. And when there's that joy that's within, the next domino effect or symptom is neither hankering nor lamenting, because you're contented within. The fear of loss is not part of your consciousness because you're contented within. You're full. Nothing to lose. And not hankering for something because you're full within. Resting upon knowing who you really are. That spiritual joy of knowing who you really are. Here's our last slide in terms of teaching. The picture over on the left, that's Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta. You may know who he is. You may have seen his image before. And here's something that is kind of a theme in what he writes. These three, fear, lamentation, and illusion, he speaks of as a triplet, commonly. Fear, that's going into the future. Lamentation, that's something in the past. And illusion is pervasive. These three, fear, lamentation, and illusion, shadow every step. The only way to become free from the clutches of these three plunderers is to engage in devotional service to Sri Krishna. That's this connection or linking with who we really are, with the source of who we really are, the source of everything, the source of who everyone is and everything. By making that connection through devotional service, bhakti yoga, then these three, lamentation and illusion, they're loitering here and there, but they don't harass you. And of the processes of you all, you nice students there in Mankato that are taking part in this sacred sound program, you know very well the Mahamantra, and that's the beginning of the awakening of that bhakti yoga, the natural awakening of the soul's connection with the Supreme. And that's the very best process to overcome fear, lamentation, and illusion. Otherwise, they'll accompany you for a long time, as long as you're embodied. And not just this lifetime, but beyond. So are we doing okay with the technology?
Yeah, restored it. It's been out for a while.
Okay. So, Dali, are you back again? Are you ready for inviting your members to ask questions? Or because the sound system isn't so great, maybe we can read the chat questions. Persons that would like to raise a...
Yes, we are here. Questions? Yes, Macarena has a question here.
So he was talking about uncertainty and so I just want to know, how can you reinforce your certainty and to like avoid fear?
She's asking, you talk about uncertainty, but how do you enforce certainty to overcome fear?
How do you do what to overcome fear?
How do you enforce certainty to overcome fear?
You can't enforce certainty. What we've been saying is, if circumstance is uncertain, you embrace it. You don't overcome it, uncertainty. It is what it is. COVID is what it is. There's a certain amount of uncertainty. Like, when school was going to resume, are you going to have in face-to-face in the classroom classes, or some of them and some of them not? And are you going to stay in the dorms? What's it going to be like? Etc. And then that changes, and then that changes, and that changes, because it keeps changing. So there's not certainty. So you can't enforce certainty. You can accept when there is uncertainty that there's uncertainty. And then you make sure that you're connected to who you really are, this eternal self that's within. And now with this degree of self-realization that you can muster and gather together, you try to make wise decisions moment to moment, addressing the uncertainties that are facing you. It's not that you can dismiss uncertainty. It's just like wave of the hand and the uncertainty is gone. You just accept it. It is what it is. Have I answered your question? I'm not sure if I have.
He said yes.
Oh, okay, great. So, Dolly, you want to read some of the other questions, or how do you want to do this?
Another question from Drake. She asked, how do you help guide someone who has been raised to fear certain things, like fearing black people and thinking about them certain way, such as they are a threat, into accepting the uncertainty and coming to a good conversation about it?
How do you guide a person who grows up with certain fears, such as fear of black persons, and who considers them a threat?
How do you help a person who has grown up hearing about and thus fearing black persons? How do you help them overcome that fear?
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
yes, the question?
Yes.
Okay. Rather because racial identification is really a hot, sensitive topic. I don't mind touching it, but just take the hot topic and step back a little bit and consider principles. I mean, supposing somebody has fear of Islamic people, or somebody has, like, at the very beginning of this presentation, the German people were told to fear Jewish people. So if the self sought to help the person who's thinking Jewish people are to be feared, or whatever, whatever. People should be regarded according not to the color of their skin or the cultural background in which they were born and raised, but their quality. According to Bhagavad Gita language, guna and karma, quality and work. So what's the nature of an individual has nothing to do with the package, the covering. So if you can help this person who grew up hearing and thus fearing a certain group of people, whatever the group of people might be, look at the individuals. Look at the individuals. I mean, yeah. It's a starting point that at this beginning of this conversation, this Franklin Delano Roosevelt, there's nothing to be feared but fear itself. It's an animal instinct and something out there that is to be feared. You label it, and that's to be feared. And you say it enough times, or the society says it enough times, and it becomes, hey, maybe it's true, that's to be feared. Like the Cold War between Russia and US, and now it's becoming Russia and China. But, meet Russian people, and they're fantastic people. Meet Chinese people, they're fantastic people. There's maybe some individuals that are a little, extremist, and we want to pay attention to the extremist people in a certain way, but not all Russian people, or all Chinese people, or all black people, or all Jewish people, or all certain groups of people. They're to be feared. It's guna and karma. It's the character of an individual that one has to look at, not where they were born, or the race, color, creed, language, etc. You go to read Bhagavad Gita, help them understand Bhagavad Gita, then you've gone a long way to help them overcome that kind of apprehension and fear.
Princess, thank you. One more question.
I have one question.
We have a question here.
I can hear his voice loud and clear. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask you, do you think that people wearing a mask and fearing wearing a mask is the right way to go? Or, like, because I feel like I don't need to wear a mask to fear death. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. However, it's not wear a mask because of fear of death, but one of the best things about wearing masks is if you happen to be non-symptomatic, but you're carrying the virus, if you wear a mask, you're not going to spread it. That's called nonviolence, right? You can wear a nonviolent mask. So even though you don't know yet whether you're the carrier, if you are, you'll prevent other people from being infected.
But do you believe that would prevent it?
Well, there's not a 100% guarantee of anything in this world, but statistically, it helps curb the spreading from one to another by wearing masks. So if I can do something that can help another person be more risk-free or more protected, that's good. It's not self-protection per se. It's infecting others more than self-protection. You understand that, right?
I do understand that, but like think about like kids that are in school, like like you think that maybe just close down the school, why not open the school and have them in? It just some of the things going on, it just doesn't make sense. Like you were saying, fear, but like is it respectfully doing it, or is it it's kind of like what you're saying, it's like being on the path trying to go onto the other side, you don't know how to get there or what's going to happen.
Well, uncertainty is to be embraced, not to be feared. That you're just saying that same point back again, and so you got it. Thank you. Now, when you're transitioning through that uncertainty which you're embracing, don't be ruled by fear and don't be ruled by foolishness. And the foolishness is, to say it again, I'm not a scientist, I haven't been studying these things, but I'm certainly familiar with circumstances where someone is not symptomatic and they infect 25, 30, 40 people unknowingly, unintentionally. So when you're in that uncertainty space, not out of fear, but out of, I don't want to be,
out of respect.
Yeah. I don't want to be the cause of other people's suffering. So let me do what I can do to minimize that. And if wearing a mask is something that potentially can minimize other suffering, that unknowingly I have caused them, well, let me take that step. It's not out of fear.
I could understand that. That makes sense.
Good. There are circumstances, just to be, honest to you and honest to myself, I don't wear a mask a whole bunch because I'm not in a whole lot of social situations. Like right now, I'm not wearing a mask. And, getting here, I got in a car just with one other person, so I'm not wearing a mask. But there are situations where I wear masks, where I'm in social situations. So I'm discriminating about when I do and when I don't. Certainly not when I'm speaking in a class, I'm not wearing a mask. And we'll get some hand sanitizer on the microphone after I'm done, so just in case I was a carrier and I didn't know it.
Because when the COVID first happened, I was really afraid of dying
I
myself.
see.
And I was really super cautious, but then I got to a stage that I was like, hold on, like what's going on? Like, is this a way for me to fear?
Yeah, don't be ruled by fear. Don't be ruled by fear.
I was for a little while because I didn't like, if I saw you, I was like, oh my God. Like,
But don't be
I wanna
worried. Don't be
close to
ruled
you.
by ignorance either.
Absolutely, but I'm just telling you that's how it was for me at first.
Okay.
But then I was like, hold on, wait a minute. Like,
So
I'm not
instead
gonna
of the
let this
pendulum
stop me
going
from
way over
living life.
there, and then the pendulum going way over to the other side. How about some balance here? You know.
Exactly.
Hey, now we got it.
From the balance though, like, because like my favorite thing is martial art, and I've been doing it since the COVID. And I realized I was like, hey, if I'm gonna catch COVID, I would have got it. But then I think that it's maybe it's just like every other disease that's out there. If your immune system is weak, you're able to get contaminated. Just like a piece of wood rotting to mold.
No, what you're saying is exactly the same thing that my spiritual master says. When your resistance is low, you're more likely to contract a disease. Absolutely. Now, there are some diseases that are, what's the word? They're insidious. They're very aggressive. So one more time, and I won't say it again. You could be the carrier of some disease, and your immune system is strong enough to fight it, and you pass it on to 50 other people. Not good. Wear a mask. Don't be ruled by fear, but be kind to others.
Exactly, because some people are not strong enough. That makes perfect sense.
Hey, work on your immune system and wear a mask. Let's hear someone else. Dolly, anyone else out there?
Yes, Mara. Please.
I have a question, if you don't mind.
Oh,
My name is Juan.
Go ahead, Sang.
All right. I'm sorry, I was a little late to.
Could you speak up a little bit?
Oh yeah. Is okay now?
Better.
Oh yeah. Thank you. Actually, I was a little bit late to attend to this class, so my question might be a little bit stupid, but I'd like to ask you about what fear means.
What does fear mean?
Yes.
Okay, well, we gave some definitions at the beginning, but I don't mind doing it again. There's an expectation that something may come. This is looking into the future. It's not in the moment, it's not in the past, it's looking into the future. Something may bring me harm. And it may be physical or emotional, physical or mental. But something may be bearing harm, and I'm fearing that harm. It's an emotion connected to the expectation, the possibility that some detriment may be coming my way, physical or mental. And that's it's fighting against that, or preparing oneself to defend against that harm that may come to me. That's what fear is.
So I may understand this is a kind of the subjective, depending on the people's experience.
Yes.
They might have different feeling of fear.
Yes.
May I understand like this?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So now I'm gonna give you my real question, because I didn't know about the meaning of the fears in this class. Okay. If somebody makes decision based on their fears, they might have a right decision or maybe not. However, what I would like to ask you is that if decision is made by somebody, who's going to take responsibility for their decision?
Who's going to take responsibility for
Their decisions.
Their decision based on their fear.
Well, any decision that you make, you take responsibility for. Any decision that I make, I take responsibility for, etc. Decisions have consequences. When I make a decision, I take responsibility for the consequences, good, bad, or mixed. That's where the responsibility lies.
But if decision was made based on their fear,
But my decision is my decision based upon whatever. It can be based on reality, it can be based on illusion. It can be based on proper sense of what's happening at the moment or a misperception of what's happening at the moment. But the decision is my decision, it's my responsibility. So fear may be ruling it, governing it, influencing it, whatever. I have the responsibility for my decision. Now, I also have responsibility for managing my fears. And,
thank you very much.
And even overcoming my fears, but at least managing my fears. It's my responsibility, and with that comes decisions. There's, say this, the living entities have free will. We're part and parcel of the supreme living entity who has unlimited free will. So we have free will because we're part of him. And with that free will, I'm making decisions, and it's my responsibility.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, and the laws of nature are like that.
Because nowadays, what I feel like, most of people who made their own decision based on their fears try to make excuse. They made their decision based on their fear.
Yes.
That's why they don't want to take responsibility for their decision. That's why I asked you about it.
Good. Well, thank you for asking.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Guruji.
Who was that?
This is Tribhuvan from Enkidu.
Tribhuvan.
Yeah.
You're very enthusiastic, Tribhuvan.
Oh yeah. Thank you.
What's your question, Tribhuvan?
So my question is, most of the people know, most of them, I would say like 99% or 99.9%, they don't have the experience of being a soul, or the identity. They don't have that experience of being a soul. So when they don't have the experience of that thing, and they identify themselves as the body, why would someone turn to be a spiritual being? Why would they start seeking?
Why do they start what?
Why would they start seeking for the self-realization thing? Why? If they don't have that experience of being a soul, why would someone start seeking for self-realization or the higher?
We're going to repeat your question.
Tribhuvan, let me try on your behalf and let me know if it's accurate, okay? So most of the population, about 99% of the people, do not realize that they're the spirit soul.
I agree
and
with
then, that. And then, given that that's the case, why would people even try seeking for spirituality if they have no idea or they're ignorant about the fact that they are a spirit soul? Is that the question?
Yeah, summarizes it.
Okay, so Tribhuvan.
Yes.
We're in the same time zone as you. We're in Chicago. You're in Mankato. It's probably darker in Mankato than in Chicago because you're further north. So it's probably kind of like the sky is dark right now. So when the sky is dark, how are you going to get people to want it to be light again instead of dark? When people are in darkness, in the 99% of the people, what is the remedy for the 99%? Answer is the association of persons that are in the light. It's sadhu sangha is the remedy. So it's not, they may not be, hey, the light went out, what to do now? It may just be that some self-realized soul or someone that's on the path of self-realization or someone that's in the category of a devotee, they're carrying light. And that person that's in the darkness says, hey, look at that light. What's that all about? And it's not, it's not the same as full, broad, midday, noon sun, but I like this light, so help me understand it some more, and how can I get some light for myself too? And so the answer to your question is through sadhu sangha, the 99% persons that don't know that their real identity is spirit soul can be awakened to that position. How's that? I mean, go to Minnesota State University at Mankato and join the Sacred Sound Club, and you're going to get some light. That's sadhu sangha. That's the answer to your question.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else at Mankato?
Physical group is good. We have students online.
There are some questions in the chat.
Yeah, I'll read them out.
Okay, we'll read them on this end, okay?
This is from Stira. I was thinking of dealing of ways with anxiety and fear. Looks like if one is able to address anxiety, then fear subsides.
Yes.
Is that correct understanding?
Yes. They're buddies, fear and anxiety.
Is not having fear at all ignorance?
No. Well, there's material fear is gone when there's spiritual illumination. But there's a healthy kind of fear, and that is, I want to avoid that which is going to again cover me into this place of forgetfulness, this darkness of ignorance once again. So that's a healthy kind. That's a healthy kind. I don't want to drink poison. That's a healthy kind.
From Vivek Srivastava, when fear is amalgamated in one's responses because of some past, what practical spiritual solutions one can take up?
It depends on the degree. What I've understood from this is, in the past I've done some things that were fearful and fear-producing, and now I'm going along in my present condition of life and something reminds me of that past. What's a spiritual solution? If that's the question, my answer is, it depends on the severity. We'll use the word trauma. We discussed this on Saturday, but depending upon the severity of the trauma, then it can be managed just through good association and spiritual knowledge and, a friend that you're in close connection with. And through that good association, you can overcome that past impression that you're carrying. And depending upon the severity, there is a skill of trauma therapy, because trauma gets stored in your system, without going into the details of what trauma therapy is. It's just like if you have a thyroid condition, that one of your organs of your body isn't working properly, you may go to a doctor, and the doctor may recommend, do this physical therapy or take this medication or something. So it's not like embarrassment that if there's something that's in your past stuck in your system, then there are ways to get it unstuck so that you can move forward. But it's resting upon, the permanence is resting upon a spiritual reawakening. Sadhu Sangha is essential in all cases. Okay?
So the next question from Sucharita Devidasi. One side is uncertainty, and on the other side we're advised to make plans. So how to overcome anxiety of planning correctly in the face of uncertainty?
Make short-term plans and be really flexible. I'm speaking from realization. Go ahead.
It's from Mataji. She asks, is fear due to bad karma? I'm trying to read more and chant and pray to Lord Krishna to help me overcome fear. It has helped, but not completely.
Well, it's not karma, it's more guna. Karma has to do with what's coming at you, and guna has to do with how you respond to what's coming at you. The quality with which, or by which, or through which you address what's coming at you as you're walking along the path of life. What's coming is karma, and how you respond is guna. So the bhakti process can address both. So just keep doing the bhakti process and nicely. And it's not that, things are going to stop coming at you, but your quality will become such that you'll be mindful of who you are and your higher purpose of mission of life, and you stay with that. And you act in an intelligent, Krishna will give you the intelligence how to act. So it's a gradual purification process, Mahati.
This is from Vasu R. How to overcome fear of anxiety which is raised from children future? I think he's asking how to overcome fear of anxiety related to the future of one's own children. I think that's what he means.
Don't have children. But if you're going to be a parent, you're going to have to live with that. There's uncertainty, and you don't know what the future holds, and you just accept it. You do your parenting part to the best ability that Krishna has given you, and you place these souls that are parts and parcels of Krishna, your children, in Krishna's care, and you're the instrument of Krishna's care, and you do it to the best of your capacity. And there's uncertainty, there's anxiety that goes along with parenting. If you don't want anxiety, then don't become a parent. Don't have any relationships, become a stone. But you have to live with it. Fear is another thing. Replace the fear with the mood of service, in short. Stay connected to Krishna, and he'll take charge of you and your dependent children.
This is from Veda Lakshmi Narayan. What are some daily prayers that one could recite to deepen their faith and keep fear at bay?
Well, just in anticipating giving this discussion this evening, I was thinking of Queen Kunti's prayer. So this devotee that's asking this question can refer to Queen Kunti's prayers, where she speaks about the fear of Krishna. He who is feared by fear personified becomes afraid of the stick in Mother Jasoda's hands. Read that verse, and that will, I think that's a nice verse for you to, Queen Kunti's prayer. Okay? We done?
Akila Dar
Okay.
from India, he has a question. Would you like to go ahead and unmute yourself and show your face and all that?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. My question is, we talked about the fear of loneliness. So if I have developed the fear of loneliness from my childhood, so it is difficult to overcome the fear even when I am present with the persons, or I feel that I am not being loved or not belong here, or some of those feelings comes up. So what are the steps to dissolve or resolve such fear?
Well, there's the spiritual step because you're asking what are the steps. The spiritual step is look to your connection with Krishna. Know that Krishna's acceptance is there. At the end of this, Jamuna Jivana, who's got the other microphone in his hand, he can send you a link to a discussion that Rambaru had with Anuttama, and she addresses that question. It's a big answer to your question is accepting Krishna's love for you. Yeah. Yes. Accepting Krishna's love for you. Now, if the curtains are closed and the drapes are shut and everything locked up, then you won't feel that. But if it's a step. There is love for Krishna for even the most insignificant of creatures, including you and me. That it's a given. It's an eternally given reality that is connected to the idea of self-worth. But the love that Krishna has, you're not alone. And I suggest the interpersonal has something to do, not just fear of loneliness, but fear of loneliness it has to do with this self-worth. So Brene Brown, go there and hear what she has to say. Hear it a few times. I've listened to it about 6 times, and I played it publicly for youth groups maybe another 6 times because it's really powerful. It's not complicated. It's really from the heart what she's saying. It's very practical, specific to this point of loneliness. Okay? Haribol.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
very much.
There's several more, Maharaj.
Okay.
This is from Amar Mataji. Are fears mainly rooted in past impressions of this and previous lives?
Fears
If
are
so,
rooted in bodily conception. Fears are rooted in Dvitiyam Abhinivesh. That's where fears are rooted in.
how does bhakti help to wash away?
Realize who you are. And to realize who you are, you have to let go of who you aren't before you can realize who you are.
There's a question here presented by Matthew Mefford that's slightly out of topic. Would you like to take it? It's
Let's see the next on-topic
okay.
question.
This is Giridhar Votikota. He asks, as a sadhaka, there's always fear or anxiety of falling down. In little spiritual progress, Lord blessed, how do we protect ourselves?
Okay. In the immature stage, having such apprehension is wholesome. How to deal with it is be careful. Don't take undue, unnecessary, foolish risks. Stay in the middle of the road. Watch out for the ditch on the left side and the right side. Don't be careless. Don't be complacent. So that's how you stay focused on where you're going to help you deal with the fear of where I don't want to be. And to keep good association. So in case you do fall asleep at the wheel, you're heading for the ditch, someone will help you get back to the middle of the road. Stay in good association. And have someone ideal, someone that you can, a close Vaishnava friend you can confide in, and they can help you.
Atulya Mataji asks, is it healthy to fear about not progressing in spiritual life?
Modestly, not excessively or obsessively.
This is from just VC, it says. In the Gita, Shri Krishna lists abhayam, fearlessness, as the first quality among the divine qualities. But isn't fear a natural quality of living beings? Even in the spiritual world, it seems to exist.
When it speaks of that quality, it's speaking of the quality of having no material fear. The answer to the question, is it existing in the spiritual world? Yes, but it's not like what we see here. So, looking at fearlessness through one lens, you're not going to get the right picture. You need a spiritual lens and a material lens. Okay?
This next question is from...
Let's just say Mother Jasoda and Nanda. When there's there's some demons that come, they're feeling concern for the safety of little Krishna. They're feeling fearful for his safety. It's a transcendental, it's not the material kind. So they're fearless, but they're not foolish. They're loving. So there's that kind of fear. Next.
So this is the last one so far. This is from Surabhi P, who asks, why does meditating specifically on Krishna's lotus feet is so powerful in overcoming fear?
And he's got powerful feet. Meditating on Krishna's feet, and one implication is the mood of service. And so if you're at Krishna's feet, it means you're humble and you're in the mood of service to Krishna, in a humble mood at his feet. So meditating on his lotus feet is powerful. It's the beginning stage or the essence, the entry level for a life of devotion. And it grows from there. Okay? Hare Krishna.
There was that one question that was off topic. Would you like to take it, or?
I think do you have anything more on your side, Dolly?
They left the meeting. They went to have prasadam.
Oh, they went to have prasadam. Okay, take the off-topic question.
Okay, this one's from Matthew Mefford, and the question is from the famous Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9, Bhishma Dev saying, then he systematically in twofold divisions described counteraction by detachment and interaction by attachment. To explain that.
Yeah, you read the purport, and at the end of the purport, read it about 10 times and it's really clear. But what it means is there's the renounced lifestyle, the brahmachari sannyas lifestyle. It's counteraction by detachment. And then there's the grahastha lifestyle, and then there's interaction with objects of the senses, etc., etc. But all the while, the mood of striving for detachment is to be operative if it's done properly, how the grahastha ashram is done properly. And then one can become liberated that way. Those are the two meanings. Counteraction by attachment. Okay? Krishna Krishna. Thank you very much, everybody. It's, I guess, whoever's online or whatever. Hare Krishna Keladar. Prabhupada ki jai.